What if I told you some of the world's strangest birds aren't in some hidden jungle in Papua New Guinea, but right here in Ecuador, a country smaller than Nevada, with birds that look like Gothic umbrellas, sword-wielding hummingbirds, and jungle ghosts that scream in caves. Yeah, this is not your average bird list. We're going deep into the Andes and Amazon, where some species are so rare, scientists have only heard their calls, never seen their faces. So here's the question. If a bird sings in the rainforest, and no human has ever seen it, does it really exist? Stick around, because today we're counting down 15 of the most mysterious, rare, and straight-up unbelievable bird species found only in the wild, beautiful corners of Ecuador. And trust me, no parrots or pigeons here. From birds with hairdos that would shame a rock star, to feathered legends hiding in mountain caves. You're about to meet the species you never knew existed, but now won't forget. Let's fly. Okay, imagine a crow. Now give it an Elvis pompadour, a feather boa, and a slinky hanging from its neck. Congratulations, you've just met the long-waddled umbrella bird. This bizarre jungle creature lives in the cloud forests of western Ecuador, where the mist hangs thick, the trees drip water, and everything feels just a little enchanted or cursed. The male umbrella bird has a massive black crest that flops over its face like it's hiding from paparazzi. But the real star of the show, that waddle, a long, feathered tube dangling from its chest that can grow up to 14 inches long. It inflates this thing like a balloon when he's calling for a mate. And the sound? It's not a chirp. It's not a song. It's a low, echoing boom, like a bass speaker in a tree. You feel it more than you hear it. Fun fact, the waddle isn't just for show. It actually acts like a built-in amplifier, deepening and projecting the male's calls through the dense forest, like nature's subwoofer. But here's the twist. Despite looking like it should be ruling a rock concert, the long-waddled umbrella bird is very hard to find. It lives in the middle to upper canopy, is shy, and blends surprisingly well into shadowy leaves. Even locals who live near their habitat have never seen one, only heard the ghostly booms at dawn. And sadly, this funky feathered icon is classified as vulnerable. Deforestation in the Chaco region of Ecuador has destroyed much of its habitat. Logging, mining, farming, all slowly pushing this bird further into the mist and out of sight. Which brings us to a serious question. How do you protect a species when most people don't even know it exists? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Coming up next, we shrink way down and meet a hummingbird with a tail so long, it looks like a flying ribbon in slow motion. If fairies were real, this is probably what they'd look like. Tiny, glowing, fast, and just a little extra. The violet-tailed sylph is a hummingbird that lives in the cloud forests of the Ecuadorian Andes, mostly between 900 and 2,500 meters elevation. And when you see one, it doesn't just fly, it flickers like light bouncing off a sapphire. The male has a shimmering green body, neon blue crown, and, get this, a tail nearly twice as long as its body, made of two thin violet feathers that trail behind like ribbon in the wind. When it hovers, that tail drifts and sways behind it like it's in slow motion, even though the wings are beating 50 times a second. Seriously, it's like watching a glow stick with wings. Fun fact, these little guys are territorial. Despite being the size of a ping pong ball, male violet-tailed sylphs will aggressively chase off other hummingbirds from their flower patches. Beauty and brawn? Total package. But here's the twist. They're only found in a narrow band of forest in northwestern Ecuador and parts of Colombia. Nowhere else. And while they're not critically endangered, their home, humid montane forest, is being cleared for farming and development at a steady, quiet pace. Worse, climate change is shifting the sweet spot elevation they rely on. Move too far up the mountain, no food, too low, too hot. They're flying a tightrope, and that's a tough act for a bird that weighs less than a nickel. So here's your question. When something this dazzling disappears, will we even notice? Or are we just too distracted to look up? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Next up, we meet a bird that looks like it stepped out of Jurassic Park, with waddles, attitude, and a voice that could shake the forest. Okay, picture this. A crow went to the jungle, got into a fight with a turkey, and came out wearing a bright red-faced noodle. That's basically the wattled guan. Native to the humid mountain forests of the Andes, this bird is almost impossible to spot unless you hear it first. And trust me, you'll know when you do. Its call, a deep whooping boo that sounds like a bass cannon echoing through the trees. You'll think a gorilla just jumped off a cliff. Nope, it's just this oversized feathered leaf blower yelling from a tree branch. The wattled guan itself is all black, with a long tail and red eyes. But its signature feature? A weird little bright red wattle, a dangly skin flap, just hanging from the base of its beak. It doesn't do much, it just dangles, which frankly is a mood. Fun fact, despite looking a bit like a jungle chicken, the wattled guan plays a key role in seed dispersal. It eats fruits whole and spreads the seeds far and wide, like a living tree planter with wings. But here's the twist. This bird is a ghost in the canopy. Even seasoned researchers rarely see it. It's shy, sticks to dense foliage, and is most active during early morning mist, like a goth birder who avoids crowds. And while it's not technically endangered, its range is shrinking fast. Logging, habitat fragmentation, and road building are carving up the Andes. And this bird just doesn't do suburbia. So here's your question. If the jungle has its own reclusive bass singer, but no one's left to hear it, does the forest still dance? Tell us in the comments. Next, we head deep into the Amazon, where a bird wears a crown it almost never shows, unless you really earn its trust. Most of the time, this bird looks kind of meh, small, brownish, modest, like it's trying really hard not to get noticed. But if you spook it, or if it's trying to impress someone, it flips the switch. Literally, meet the Amazonian royal flycatcher, the ultimate glow-up artist of the jungle. This bird lives deep in the lowland rainforests of eastern Ecuador, usually along quiet riverbanks or near creeks. You might walk right past one and never know it, until it reveals its secret weapon, a massive, fan-shaped crown that explodes from its head like a neon-feathered firework. Bright orange with blue-black tips. It looks like a tiny carnival exploded behind its eyes. Fun fact, that crown stays folded down almost all the time. Most people, even researchers, go years without seeing it open. It's like the bird is hiding a royal headdress for emergencies only. So why the drama? Well, when courting or startled, the flycatcher flashes that crown in full display, usually while shaking its body and bobbing its head like it's doing interpretive dance in a jungle theater. Honestly, Oscar-worthy. But here's the twist. Despite its flair, this species is shockingly understudied. Why? Because it's small, silent most of the time, and lives in parts of the rainforest people rarely explore. And when the forest goes, so does the performance. Deforestation across the Amazon, including in Ecuador, is wiping out the quiet riparian corridors these birds depend on. And since they're not flashy 24/7, they often slip through conservation radar. It's like losing an artist before you ever saw their best work. So here's your question. If nature saves its most beautiful moments for the rarest eyes, how many have we already missed? Let us know in the comments. Up next, things get loud, bright, and borderline chaotic because the bird coming up throws dance parties in the fog. Okay, imagine if a traffic cone came to life, got into a boy band, and decided to never skip leg day. That's the Andean cock of the rock. Yes, that's its real name. And no, we're not changing it. This bird is absolutely ridiculous in the best way possible. The males are bright orange. I mean glow-in-the-dark, highlighter level orange, with a huge rounded crest that covers half their face like they're trying to cosplay a mushroom. And where do they live? The Andean cloud forests of Ecuador. Damp, shadowy, and misty like a fantasy novel, which makes their color pop even more. But here's where things go off the rails. The cock of the rock doesn't just look flashy, he puts on a dance battle to find a mate. At special spots called leks, groups of males gather in the forest and compete in the most intense jungle talent show you've never seen. They jump, they call, they flutter their wings and bob like they're in a silent disco, all while trying to out-weird each other in front of passing females. Fun fact, females don't even participate. They just show up, judge silently, and pick the best dancer. Nature's version of Ecuador's Got Talent. But here's the twist. Despite being iconic and well-known in birding circles, these birds are extremely sensitive to habitat loss. They need large, undisturbed forest patches to maintain their dancing grounds. You break up the forest, you break up the party. And because they're so focused on lekking, they invest almost nothing in parenting. Yep, the female does everything once the dancing's over. Classic. So here's your question. If we destroy the forest, who tells the next generation what good dancing even looks like? Let us know in the comments. Coming up, we head back to the forest floor to meet a strange ground bird that struts like a chicken, honks like a goose, and absolutely refuses to fly unless it has to. You know those animals that make you ask, wait, is this even a bird? Yeah, that's the gray-winged trumpeter. Found in the Amazon lowland forests, including eastern Ecuador, this bird spends most of its life doing the unthinkable. For a bird, it walks. All day, every day. It waddles around the jungle floor like a prehistoric chicken on a mission. And it almost never flies unless it's absolutely forced to. Why bother flapping when you've got legs like a jungle marathoner? But what really sets it apart? Its voice. When threatened or excited, the trumpeter lets out a loud, echoing "Trap!" It's part honk, part trombone, part "what the heck was that?" Fun fact, in the wild, gray-winged trumpeters are known to form tight family groups and will even raise each other's chicks. In captivity, they've been known to bond with humans and act like guard dogs. No joke. They'll follow you around and honk at strangers like it's their job. But here's the twist. Even though they seem social and bold, they're still incredibly hard to study in the wild. They slip silently through dense undergrowth and are most active in the early morning when few people are watching. And with logging and forest fragmentation increasing across the Amazon, their home turf is shrinking fast. The weird thing? They're not even officially endangered yet, but they're disappearing quietly, little by little, because no one's really paying attention to the birds that don't fly. And honestly, that's a pretty big oversight. So here's your question. If a bird walks through the jungle and no one bothers to look down, who's really missing out? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Next, we leave the forest floor behind and soar back into the Andes, where an eagle so rare it was once thought extinct still hunts from the mist. Now this is the bird you summon when you need the forest to feel a little more dramatic. The black-and-chestnut eagle is a predator, not a hawk, not a buzzard, a full-on, this thing can carry a monkey type of eagle, and yet, almost no one sees it. This massive raptor lives in the cloud forests of the Andes, soaring high above the canopy where mist curls between moss-covered trees. With a jet-black body, deep chestnut wings, and a bold white tail stripe, it looks like something out of an old legend. And it flies like one too. Slow, powerful, and deadly quiet. Like a ghost that's also very into cardio. Fun fact, this eagle is one of the few birds known to prey on woolly monkeys and arboreal mammals. That's right, it's not just picking off squirrels. We're talking full-on monkey takedowns. Nature is wild, but here's the twist. The black-and-chestnut eagle is critically endangered. Fewer than 1,000 individuals are estimated to remain in the wild. Habitat destruction is a huge part of that. But there's another reason, human conflict. In some rural areas, these eagles have been persecuted for attacking domestic chickens, which, to be fair, is kind of like blaming a tiger for raiding your mini fridge. And here's the kicker. This eagle's territories stretch across multiple Andean countries. But Ecuador is a key stronghold. Without its forested slopes, this species has almost nowhere left to go. They nest high up on cliffs or massive trees, places few humans ever reach. But every now and then, a lucky hiker or birder will look up and catch a glimpse of wings slicing through the clouds. So here's your question. When the top predator of the forest starts vanishing, what happens to everything else? Tell us what you think down in the comments. Next, we shrink down again and meet a hummingbird so absurdly decorated, it looks like a flying piece of jewelry wearing a feathered mohawk. If hummingbirds had a fashion week, this guy would be closing the runway. The wire-crested thorntail is a tiny bird, seriously tiny, about the length of your pinky finger. But what it lacks in size, it makes up for in drip. Males have a glossy green body, a glowing white chest stripe, and a long, spiky tail that looks like two black wires sticking out behind them. But wait, the best part? Right on top of its head is a neon green crest that sticks up like a feathered mohawk. Yes, it's real. Yes, it's absurdly extra. Yes, we love it. These birds live in the humid cloud forests of the eastern Andes, fluttering between flowers like tiny caffeinated helicopters. And just like every hummingbird, they're all speed and zero chill. Fun fact, the wire-crested thorntail flaps its wings up to 80 times per second and has one of the highest metabolisms in the animal kingdom. That's right, this little guy burns more calories per gram than an Olympic sprinter during finals. But here's the twist. They're also really hard to find, not just because they're small and fast, but because they live in dense, elevated forests that's slowly being chipped away by roads, logging, and agriculture. Most people in Ecuador don't even know they exist. And if the forests vanish, so does this blink and you miss it miracle. And since their territories are tiny, just a few trees really, one bulldozer could wipe out a generation. So here's your question. If a bird only weighs a few grams, but lights up the forest like a gemstone, how much is that sparkle worth? Tell us what you think in the comments. Next, we head back into the deep Amazon to meet a bird that's almost never seen, but sings a song so beautiful. It's been compared to a flute played in a dream. Imagine walking through the rainforest. The air is thick, the light is soft, you're sweating. Then, from deep in the trees, you hear a sound so pure, so perfect, it stops you in your tracks. That's the voice of the musician wren. This small, unassuming bird lives deep in the Amazonian rainforest, including the remote, wet corners of eastern Ecuador. And while it's not flashy, no crazy feathers, no neon colors, its song, it's legendary. Its call is a series of rising, falling, flute-like notes, pure, slow, and hauntingly beautiful. It doesn't sound like a bird. It sounds like a melody from another world. In fact, some indigenous tribes consider the song so sacred, they believe you should never imitate it or even whistle it back. It's nature's private music. Fun fact, the musician wren's song is so mathematically structured, some scientists have compared it to classical compositions, like Mozart, but with feathers. But here's the twist, you almost never see this bird. It hides deep in tangled undergrowth, close to the ground, and is active when the forest is still. Some birders spend years hearing it, but never spotting it. That makes it one of the most recorded but least photographed songbirds in the Amazon. And as with many forest specialists, it's under quiet threat. Logging and development don't just destroy homes, they change the acoustics of the forest. A noisy forest means fewer songs. If the tree falls and blocks the echo, does the music still feel the same? So here's your question. When a bird's beauty is in its voice, not its feathers, do we listen more or less? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Up next, we head higher into the Andes again, where a hummingbird breaks all the rules with a weaponized beak longer than its own body. Some birds have long beaks. Some birds have crazy long tails. But this one? This bird has a beak longer than its entire body. Meet the sword-billed hummingbird, the only bird on Earth with a beak so long, it has to tilt its head up just to preen its own chest. No joke, it's like watching a tiny fencer try to brush its teeth with a sword. Found in the high-elevation cloud forests of the Andes, including parts of central and northern Ecuador, this hummingbird was built for the weirdest of flowers. Its beak allows it to reach deep into long, tubular blooms that other birds can't access. An evolutionary partnership millions of years in the making. And yes, it still hovers like a champ, despite carrying that ridiculous blade on its face. Fun fact, its tongue is just as long, coiled up inside its skull like a tape measure. Unroll it, and you'd swear this bird was secretly part reptile. But here's the twist. That specialized beak, it's a superpower and a curse. If the specific plants it feeds on disappear due to deforestation, climate shifts, or habitat loss, it can't just switch flowers. No backups, no plan B. It's perfectly adapted to a very specific world. And that world is changing fast. The sword-billed hummingbird isn't considered endangered yet, but its niche is razor thin. It's like watching a tightrope walker perform flawlessly on a rope that's slowly unraveling. And despite being a living jaw-dropper, it's still one of the least known hummingbirds outside the scientific and birding community. So here's your question. When nature creates something this weird, and it works, how long do we have before the magic runs out? Let us know in the comments. Next up, we head southwest into one of Ecuador's most isolated forests to find a turkey-like bird that barely clings to existence on the edge of a forgotten range. You've heard of parrots, you've heard of toucans, but have you ever heard of a chachalaca? Didn't think so. Meet the Rufous-headed chachalaca, a turkey-sized forest-dwelling bird with a name that sounds like a snack, and a population size that's honestly terrifying. This bird lives in a very specific region, the southwestern foothills of Ecuador and a tiny sliver of northern Peru. And that's it. That's the whole world. It's a chunky brownish bird with a rust-colored head, a long tail, and a voice like it just lost a karaoke battle. Their call, it's loud, somewhere between a screech, a bark, and a rusty swing set. Picture a chicken trying to imitate a howler monkey. Fun fact, the name chachalaca is onomatopoeic. It literally comes from the sound it makes. Chachalaca, chachalaca. Birds naming themselves, iconic. But here's the twist. The Rufous-headed chachalaca is one of the most endangered birds in Ecuador. It lives in dry forests and semi-humid slopes, habitats that have been massively deforested for cattle grazing, roads, and agriculture. In fact, only small patches of forest remain, and many of them are outside protected areas. And because this bird isn't flashy or famous, it doesn't get the conservation love that parrots or jaguars do. It's the background character of the Andes, quietly vanishing while we look the other way. Some estimates suggest fewer than 1,000 individuals remain in the wild. That's not just rare, that's critically endangered with a capital C. So here's your question. When a species fades quietly, no headlines, no drama, who decides it's still worth saving? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Next up, we bring the color back, big time, because the next bird is basically a toucan if it came in fun size. You've probably seen woodpeckers before, but have you ever seen one that looks like it dressed for a masquerade ball in the middle of a thunderstorm? Meet the crimson-mantled woodpecker, one of the most stylish and underrated members of the Andes Highlands. This bird sports a deep red mantle, almost like it's wearing a velvet cape. Its face, black with delicate white markings, and males, they add a bright red mustache just to show off. Found in mid to high elevation cloud forests across the Andes, including Ecuador, this bird is often heard before it's seen, tapping away at mossy tree trunks or letting out a loud cackling laugh that echoes through the fog. Fun fact, unlike most woodpeckers, the crimson-mantled often forages in moss and epiphytes, not just on wood. So technically, it's more of a plant pecker. Okay, maybe don't say that out loud. But here's the twist. This bird is surprisingly poorly studied. Why? Because it lives in high, misty forests that aren't easy to access, and it tends to stick to the shadows. It's not endangered, but it's also not protected by popularity. It's not flashy enough to headline ecotourism brochures and not rare enough to sound alarm bells. which means it's easy to ignore until one day it's just not there anymore. Its habitat is slowly being chopped into fragments by roads, logging, and pasture land, especially in places where the cloud forest is already patchy. And once the forest is gone, there's nowhere for this caped climber to go. So here's your question. Do we only care about the rare once they've become impossible to find? Tell us in the comments. Next, we head back down into the Amazon to find a bird that's part toucan, part shadow, and somehow manages to hide in full color. So, picture a toucan. Now shrink it down. Turn down the brightness. Add a touch of mystery and hide it in the deepest part of the rainforest. That's the golden-collared toucanet, possibly the most introverted member of the toucan family. This bird lives in the Amazonian lowlands of eastern Ecuador, but good luck spotting one. Despite being colorful, it's got a ninja-level ability to vanish into leaves. It's small, sleek, and mostly green, with a stunning golden collar around its neck, a black face mask, and a bill that's way too cool for something this shy. It doesn't call attention to itself like its larger toucan cousins. It doesn't croak, squawk, or yodel. It just slips quietly from branch to branch, looking like a living jade sculpture. Fun fact, unlike big toucans that love the high canopy, golden-collared toucanets often forage in the mid-levels of the forest, hopping around in small groups and munching fruit like feathered introverts at a brunch table. But here's the twist. Most people have never even heard of this bird. Even in Ecuador, it's one of those species that exists in field guides, but almost never in photos. And that's a problem, because things we don't notice are easy to lose. Its population isn't well studied, its range is patchy, and as the Amazon gets carved up for mining, agriculture, and roads, this toucanet's quiet life is getting even quieter. So here's your question. If a bird doesn't shout, doesn't dance, and doesn't dazzle, is it still worth protecting? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Next up, things get weird, really weird, because we're going underground to meet a bird that sleeps in caves, flies like a bat, and uses echolocation. Yes, seriously. You're in a cave, it's pitch black. You hear fluttering above you, followed by clicking sounds. You think, bats. Plot twist, it's a bird. Meet the oilbird, possibly the most confusing creature in the entire rainforest. It looks like a cross between a hawk and a moth. It sounds like a sonar device, and it lives in total darkness. Found in deep caves across northern South America, including eastern Ecuador, the oilbird is the world's only nocturnal, fruit-eating bird that uses echolocation to fly. Yeah, read that again. It uses clicking sounds to bounce off cave walls and navigate like a bat, except it's not hunting insects. It's looking for palm fruits. Fun fact, the name oilbird comes from a bizarre colonial-era practice. People used to boil the chicks for their fat because the baby birds get so plump from eating oily fruits. They were basically little flying butterballs. Gruesome? Yes. Historical? Also yes. Here's the twist. Oilbirds are rarely seen, even by scientists. They live in caves during the day, only emerging at night to feed, flying miles through dense rainforest using nothing but moonlight and echolocation. No other bird does this, and their nesting caves are hypersensitive. Disturb them during breeding season, and the whole colony might abandon ship. Add in deforestation, tourism pressure, and changing fruit cycles, and the future of these feathered cave dwellers gets pretty dark. Literally, but maybe the wildest thing. Despite being this strange and unique, the oilbird still flies completely under the radar in global conservation. It's too weird for mainstream attention and too elusive for easy study. So here's your question. How many species like this, the oddballs, the misfits, the cave whisperers, do we lose simply because they don't fit our idea of what a bird should be? Tell us in the comments. Next up, to close our journey, we meet the jungle's apex predator. So powerful, so elusive, it borders on mythical. You've heard of it, but have you ever truly seen it? If eagles had a final boss, this would be it. The Harpy Eagle isn't just big, it's monster big. With a wingspan up to 7 feet, talons as long as grizzly bear claws, and legs thicker than a human wrist, this is what happens when evolution says, let's go full myth. Found deep in the Amazon canopy, including eastern Ecuador, the Harpy Eagle is one of the world's most powerful raptors. It can snatch monkeys straight from the treetops. It takes down sloths mid-nap. It sits silently for hours, then strikes like thunder and feathers. Fun fact, those feathery crown tufts on its head, they're not just for looks. The harpy can raise them like a radar dish to funnel sound, basically turning its head into a jungle listening station. Fashion and function. But here's the twist. Despite being a literal legend, the Harpy Eagle is vanishing. Why? Because it needs vast, untouched rainforests to survive. Hundreds of square kilometers of dense canopy to nest, hunt, and raise just one chick every 2 years. And those forests, they're being cleared faster than the eagle can even relocate. Even worse, some are hunted by people who don't understand them, seeing them as a threat to livestock, or worse, as trophies. So while this bird looks invincible, it's hanging on by a thread. Most Ecuadorians will never see one. Most people on Earth don't even know it's real. And yet, when you look into its eyes, you get the feeling it's watching you back, measuring you, judging humanity, just a little. So here's your final question. If the wildest creature in the forest disappears, will we even realize it was real? Or will it become just another ghost in the jungle, talked about in stories but never seen again? So now you've met them. 15 of Ecuador's most mysterious, rare, and downright unbelievable bird species. Some tiny as a thumb, others big enough to carry off monkeys. Some sing like flutes, others live in caves and whisper in clicks. All of them invisible to most of the world. If you made it this far, first off, thank you. Seriously, you're part of the 1% who actually pays attention to the planet's strangest and most spectacular stories. If you enjoyed this journey through Ecuador's cloud forests and jungles, go ahead and give the video a like, subscribe if you want more rare wildlife deep dives, and ring the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. There are still dozens of other countries with creatures just as strange and just as at risk. And hey, before you click away, tell us in the comments, which bird surprised you the most? And if you could protect just one, which would it be? That's it for now. Stay curious, stay kind, and don't forget to look up.